Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video with Yoseka. Today I will be explaining everything about the April Start Hobonichi planners. So what is Hobonichi April Start, or Hobonichi Spring Start, you also might hear it called? This is a line of planners that Hobonichi has released for the Japanese financial and school year. This starts in April, so all of these planners are referred to as a spring or April start because, well, that's when it starts. And this is something that's very different than the US. This is something that really happens just in Japan. So you'll see a lot of things in these planners that make sense for Japan. And I will explain that to you in this video. This video will kind of go like, I'll look at the format, I'll give you some ways that you can use the planner, even though you might not live in Japan or might not subscribe to the Japanese school and financial year system. And I will also show you the inside layouts. And if I'm able to, I will also test the paper as well for the 2025 April Start editions. So let's get started. These are the planners that are available in the Hobonichi April Start lineup. Now this one is part of their 2025 special edition releases. So this is something that will only be available for 2025, but these planners reoccur every year. So we have one for 2024, 2023, and so on. So this format really doesn't change, and the inside format of this doesn't change either. It's really just the outside designed cover that Hobonichi sometimes releases some special fun designs for. But this is the cousin, original, and the weeks. There is no avec and no day free, no weeks mega. So that's something that you'll see here. It's a little bit of a reduced lineup. And the reason for that is because since this is a Japanese calendar year kind of system, it's less popular overall, like internationally. So that's why this lineup is a little bit reduced. So you'll also see that in these, they're only released in the Japanese language like this, again, because it's a more Japanese calendar system. So they don't release these planners in English as of yet. As of 2025, they have not released the April Start editions in English. So you'll notice that here. Starting off with the first reason for why you might want to use an April Start planner, or how you can use an April Start planner, would be just because you missed the January planner rush. So Hobonichi actually releases their planners in September, on September 1st, in preparation for January. But some people don't realize that this sale starts many months before the actual year starts, and you might miss it. Like, especially if you're new to Hobonichi, you might miss it, which is totally understandable. So if you missed that rush, these are available starting in February in preparation for April when they actually start. But each of these planners start at a little bit of a different time, so I will go through when these start. So you can see on the side, the index is showing that it doesn't start until April, but then it continues past December into March of the following year. And that's the same for all three formats. Starting with the cousin, the monthly layouts, you get this tracker the same as the January edition. It just continues past December of that current year. And the monthly actually starts in February. For the original, it's the same deal, it starts in February. For the weeks, it actually starts in March, which is a little bit different. So you can see here, cousin is February, original is February, weeks is in March for the monthly layouts. Then the cousin is the one that has the weekly layouts in the middle, like this. And those start in April, so it will coincide with the April 1st start, and that will be the same for the daily pages. They will start in April 1st. For the original, there are no weekly pages, so the daily pages will start on April 1st as well, like that. And then for the weeks, Obviously, there's only weekly pages in here, but the weeks start much earlier, so you can start using it in March, actually. And this is true of the January version. It gives it to you a month earlier, so you can start using it already. But this one you can start using at the end of February and beginning of March. So you get the whole month of March in here before it starts in April. And the weeks continues into March. So just because you get an extra March layout does not mean you can't keep using it into the following year in March. So those are the interior layouts, and I think this is very helpful if you missed that January planner rush. So the second reason why you might want to use a Hobonichi April Start is if you're really busy at the end of the year and want something to carry over from December to January in one book. So since the April Start planners end in March of the following year like this, you actually have coverage for the entire end of the calendar year. So for this year, 2025, it'll continue from December to January. So if you're a person who has a lot going on in the holidays and transferring all this information from like your month, like any holidays that you already set up in your monthly layout or any tasks that you already have set up in your weekly layout, this will actually continue over from December to January, so you don't have to switch anything out at the end of the year. So that's something that's pretty convenient about these April Start planners, and you can do that with the original or the weeks as well. So that would be the second reason, is you have a lot of things and you don't want to switch it out into another book and spend all that time at the end of the year when things are already pretty hectic and busy. The third reason why you might want to use an April Start planner would be if you have a project that does not start in January. So a lot of people have projects that maybe for school or for work do not start exactly in January because things are still getting started, especially for school years that don't even start at the very beginning of January. If you have a project that doesn't start till maybe February or March or something that's a little more seasonal, the planners are much better for not having blank space at the beginning. So this goes for if you missed that January rush as well. You can start right when you need it. So if you're not starting a project until March or not until February, then this might be a good option for you, so you're not carrying around all that extra bulk at the front of the planner when January tends to be a slow month, possibly for some people, not for all people, but that would be the final reason as to why you might want to use one of these spring start planners rather than a January start planner. All right, so that is everything as for ways you could use these planners. Now I'm going to move on to testing the paper for this because we've gotten a lot of questions about it, whether the paper is different. These papers should be the exact same. They have been the same for the previous editions of Hobonichi. They usually match up with the January start, but since we keep getting questions about it, I am happy to answer those questions and do the same testing in here as I did in my We Tested 7 planner papers so that you don't have to video. So that'll be somewhere on the screen or in the description if you want to watch that video as well. But I will do the same kind of ink lineup testing here in this video. So I will test it in the Cousin because that's what I tested it in before. And I think a lot of people have questions about it as well. I will just do it right here on the first day. So I probably won't talk through too much of this and I'll just explain it at the end. Okay. So there we go. We have my test. It's not the exact same test that I did before. Last time I actually wrote with some of the inks as if you're writing, not like exactly swatching. But I think this will still be a good demonstration, even though I wasn't able to do that today. So here we go. Starting from the top, this is testing the ink properties and showing shading and sheening, like how well the paper shows it off. I don't know if the camera is really picking this up in the lighting here, but just like the previous paper, this is showing off the ink qualities really, really well. Then we have feathering, which is a test with this ink, which has been known to feather on many papers. Yeah, you can see there is a little bit of feathering there on this one, but I think, oh, now it's showing up really well. The shading and sheening, you can really see show up very nicely. You get the full range of colors there. There is a little bit of feathering with that one. This next test was with the wet ink, which I chose Pilot Irishizuku Ajisai, which is quite a wet ink, and this is what I tested last time as well. There is some feathering here, and this is a full ink swatch, so there is quite a bit of ink on this paper. But I think it's interesting that even though these top swatches didn't feather at all, this one is feathering quite a bit. So that's very interesting. Now checking for ghosting and bleed through with these. So the top two didn't bleed through at all. There's like slight ghosting, which is expected on Tomoe River paper. And then these bled through quite a bit. So that's a very interesting thing here. I think it's really interesting. These two perform like really well and the paper behaves really nicely with these. And I wouldn't consider this to be a dry ink necessarily. So this is a very interesting test for me. And then we have Jetstream ballpoint, a gel pen. This is another fountain pen ink, just a plain black ink, because I know a lot of people like to see how just a regular black ink performs. And then there's a water-based pigment marker, which I chose the Fudenosuke. And then this one is a highlighter, which I chose mild liner, and then an oil-based ink stamp. There's no smudging for this, which is really great to see. I did this one upside down, so this one's the one that we'll be looking at. So let's look at ghosting and bleed through for all of these. It seems like they perform really well on the front side. And on the back, yeah, that's very nice. There is some ghosting, which again is to be expected with Tomoe River paper. No bleed through for these. The very slightest bleed through on the markers actually, but it's very, very slight there, but no bleed through at all from the fountain pen ink or the gel or the ballpoint pens. So that's really nice to see. And then the oil-based stamp also performed really well. There's almost no bleed through. So there is some ghosting, but again, that's to be expected. So this is a very, very interesting test. All right, so I hope this test helped show the quality of the paper. It seems pretty consistent with Tomoe River paper, except for maybe this swatch. You know, I'm gonna do it really quickly. Okay, so one last final test because I wanted to see it. This is in an actual like pen thickness width for the wet ink, and there's much less feathering on there. You can still see there's a tiny bit, but I think that's a comforting thought, that if you're not doing a big laydown of ink and it's just a little bit of writing, it'll perform much better. Let's see if there's any bleed through. Very, very little. No bleed through actually. The swatch is right there. That is the end of the paper testing. All right, so I think that is everything for this video. If you have any other questions, feel free to let me know in the comments and I will try my best to answer all of them. I hope this explains the Hobonichi Spring Start a little bit better if you didn't know about it before, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.